Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Give Your OpenEdge Applications the Edge with OpenAccess. In today's session, you'll learn how Progress DataDirect OpenAccess is the fast, easy, secure way to integrate your OpenEdge applications with virtually all reporting tools and BI analytics. The new release of our OpenAccess for OpenEdge Application Server enables you to rapidly provide SQL connectivity to your OpenEdge business data using only ABL. Deliver powerful SQL connectivity to your OpenEdge data in just days. This is Marlis Furs. I'm your host for today's session. Jeff Reeser, Senior Product Strategist, and Brent Adonis, System Engineer at Progress, will be our presenters today. Jeff Reeser currently leads Big Data and Cloud Data Product Strategy for Progress Software. Before that, Jeff was responsible for business process management solutions both at Progress and IBM. Prior to Progress, Jeff spent more than 30 years at IBM, where he held a number of technical and management positions and was instrumental in developing and product managing IBM's WebSphere application server. Brent Adonis joined the Progress Software team in South Africa as a consultant in 2000, providing consulting, pre-sales, training, and technical support to Progress partners and end users in Southern Africa. He transferred to Progress UK in September 2008 and joined the team in his current role as a solution engineer, assisting the UK and Ireland partners and end users with their use of the Progress portfolio of products. I would like to hand today's session off to Jeff. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks, Marlis. And hi, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. Hopefully this will be very useful to you. And the way I'm structuring the webinar is I'm going to talk maybe for 15 minutes or so, and then I'll turn it over to Brent, who will do a very good demo of OpenAccess and how to use it with an OpenEdge application. And along the way, we're going to start by throwing a spotlight on a couple of vendors and talk about how they built and customized data connectivity for their customers. And we'll start off with a question. So how do companies like Coins and Netsuite provide real-time business intelligence access to OpenEdge applications, allow those applications to easily integrate with ETL processes, and standardize on data integration? Their journey, and the journey for a lot of companies to customize data connectivity, really starts with a goal and a challenge. It's really all about making the data more accessible for quicker and faster data integration. So you can start out by asking, how do I connect my favorite business intelligence and analytics tools to my clients' OpenEdge applications? Very relevant question. How can I easily integrate those OpenEdge applications with existing ETL processes and other data warehouses that we might have in-house? And how do I expose the multi-tenant OpenEdge data while preserving security and privacy? And security really is one of the premier qualifications that we really need to preserve the security when we're trying to access this data. How can I expose my OpenEdge data without having to radically change my roadmap plans? How do we implement this very easily and quickly? And a lot of times the current schema is far too complex or maybe terse for business analysts to understand. So how do we simplify that? How do we make that easier for everyone who's accessing the data to understand? So the answer to all of these questions is being able to unlock that data in your application through standardized SQL. That means either ODBC, Open Database Connectivity, or the Java version, JDBC. So when we look at SQL, it's pervasively supported by virtually every data-centric tool that's out there or application that's out there today. It's been around for a long time. It's tested and proven. It's really the preferred solution even today, and it's enjoying a kind of a resurgence as well for high volume, high performance data integration, and it really opens up the application data to more than just developers. So let's look at a few general use cases that accelerate both business analysis and data integration while opening up the customer's applications to a much broader set of users. So in this diagram, you can see we're building some customized data access into the OpenEdge application, which controls the OpenEdge data. We're exposing that data via either 4GL or an ABL business logic. No large application changes are required to do this. And the types of applications that are accessing the data could be your customers' BI or data analysis tools, or it could also be other applications within the customer's ecosystem or the customer's businesses that want to access the data that's being held and controlled by your OpenEdge application. So the connectivity, this is very important, has to be through your business logic layer and not directly to the underlying database. And I'll show you in a minute why that's really important to preserve the security and multi-tenancy aspects of this. We want to be able to expose the sometimes complex or multi-tenant data in a more simple and secure and reliable way. And we can do that with the custom-built data access. We want to standardize the data integration with any data-centric application that's on the market today, any third-party tools that might be being used in these use cases. And finally, we are expanding the relevance of the OpenEdge application itself within its own ecosystem. So other businesses, other applications within that customer's business or industry can access the data in the same simplified way. So let's look at a little more detail on Coins. Coins is an application provider. They're specializing in ERP software for the construction industry. And I actually looked this up. Their acronym stands for Construction Objects and the Integration of Processes and Systems. So it's very relevant for what they were trying to do here and what they were successful in doing here. They had a specialized ERP for construction industry jobs. They wanted to integrate with other third-party BI tools like Crystal Reports or Excel or some other analysis tools. They had built an application adapter solution which provided an ODBC interface. They used OpenAccess to do this. It only took them a few weeks to actually implement this. And their application adapter allowed one to connect these third-party products to the business logic layer of the native Coins reporting solution, which was an OpenEdge application. And as a benefit, they really were able to do this pretty quickly. So rapid time to market. They provided them with some very quick return on investments. And as a result, they ended up with massive productivity gains by using this application adapter and opening up the data, unlocking the data, and preserving everything that they had in the security layer and policies within their business logic. The second one is Netsuite. Now, Netsuite offers a very popular business management suite. And what they needed to do, they needed to offer their customers optimal solutions for data access, not only from their suite, but from other applications within the customer's businesses, essentially opening up customer application data to a much wider audience. So that was their challenge. They used OpenAccess again for data connectivity, which helped them support an extensive a set of data sources, and it provided a breadth of standards and implementation. And as a benefit, helped them deliver more value to their end users, expanding the relevance of their end user applications within those businesses, within those ecosystems. Provides application data connectivity demanded by their customer set and by the marketplace as well. So it was added some really good value for their customers. So both Coins and Netsuite used OpenAccess in quickly building this data connectivity. and it really helped them get to market much quicker. So they provided, again, a quick and easy implementation, translating into very fast time to market, custom-built data connectivity to the application data, really from anywhere. So really opening up so that other tools, including their own and third-party BI tools, can access that data. Expose the application's data through standard APIs like ODBC or JDBC. And the data access was optimized by leveraging the SQL execution engine, which comes along with OpenAccess. OpenAccess really provided most of the code. There was very little additional code that had to be written in order to do this. And finally, it's SQL access, so it's standardized access to any data source, any application data, including application data in proprietary files, and as we're talking about here today, in OpenEdge applications. So really the big focus of this webinar is to talk about what's new in OpenAccess. It's really the main reason we wanted to talk to you today. We recently updated OpenAccess to include a full function data driver or interface provider that helps unlock OpenEdge application data in a much smarter and easier way than in the past. We call it OpenAccess for OpenEdge Application Server. You can see the diagram here that shows the functionality. Really, it requires no additional OpenAccess interface provider coding. It's all written in APL. It provides access to the business entity, and it supports create, read, update, delete type operations, CRUD operations automatically. So it's a super easy way to get started with this. And before we get into the demo, let me provide a little more color around this and talk about why you would want to consider using OpenAccess rather than the freely available driver that comes with the OpenEdge database. And on the left-hand side, I'm showing the out-of-the-box driver. And if you look at how it's connecting directly to an OpenEdge database. And what that does, essentially, it bypasses the ability to enforce multi-tenancy, bypasses the ability to enforce security policies, and in general, not what you typically want to do when you're dealing with OpenEdge data inside the applications. On the right-hand side is really what's new, OpenAccess for the OpenEdge Application Server. It's a custom-built OpenAccess driver, comes with OpenAccess. Very little additional coding that's required here. It connects tools, third-party tools and applications via your application logic layer. So it connects to the OpenEdge Application Server. And what we'll do now is turn it over to Brent, who will show a demo of this new interface provider for OpenEdge. So, Brent?
Thank you very much, Jeff, for that. And I'll get into the demo of the OpenAccess for OpenEdge. But prior to getting into that, I'll just have a look at the standard out-of-the-box driver that Jeff mentioned earlier on. And when you install the OpenEdge database application, database or the client networking product, we automatically install the ODBC and JDBC drivers from version 9.1 of Progress through to our current release today of OpenEdge 11.3. So what that does for you is, if you went to your data source administrator, you'll see that you've got a DataDirect ODBC driver that you can use automatically. And I've already configured one of these for us to test. So what you require from a credential perspective to enter are, firstly, the host name that you want of the database that you're wanting to connect to, the port number that database is broadcasting on, and then, of course, the name of the database. And you will see that I'm using the now all too familiar Sports 2000 database of Progress. So When I've set all of that information up, I can do a test connect of that. And this really illustrates the first point that Jeff was mentioning of the shortcoming of the solution is the security behind it. So at this point, I'm going to enter any text over there, just scramble my fingers across my keyboard and as a user ID, and I'm going to do a test connection. And you will notice that test connection will come back as connection established, which really highlights the first point. This is not secure. So immediately, without putting in any, security credentials, I have access to that data source. And I'm going to go ahead and connect to that data source using the all too familiar Microsoft Excel. And in doing so, you will see the other shortcoming. So I'm going to choose the Microsoft query. I will again use the standard DataDirect ODBC driver, as we mentioned. At this point, I do need to enter a user ID. That is because from a progress perspective, we do not allow access to the database with a blank user ID. So I'm entering that now. Notice again, no password, and it's let me through to the database. So that's great. I've got access to all of these tables, which is brilliant. But as a developer, I may understand what those tables mean, what data they hold, and so forth. And this illustrates the second point that Jeff was talking about. The data in the database is meaningful to a developer. The database was created for transactional purposes and there so that we could understand and do transactions on our database. However, for someone wanting to do any business analytics of the data, it's not that clear. So getting to the end of July, one of a request, a very valid request would be, tell me the details of all the orders we have in the system. Break them down for me by country, as well as all of the, who those orders belong to, which sales rep has which order, so I can see how they're progressing according to their targets. So that's what my aim is, and so I see there's a customer table, so I probably want to start there because I don't want a customer name and number. I probably want the country that it's in. I definitely want the sales rep details. So now I just want to get some pricing information, and it's not there. Oh dear. Right, where do we go from here? Let's keep scrolling down, and maybe we get some information further down. There's an order. I definitely wanted information on order, so I've got an order number. Now just to get some pricing. We're still not there. I think you're getting the idea. A lot of you have worked with the Sports 2000 database and could clearly tell me, yes, Brent, you just need to go to order line, and from there you can get the price, and you can add that, and you can get the quantity, and you can get the discount, and from there you can move on. But I think this illustrates again some of the points that Jeff was mentioning earlier on, is that data is not accessible in a meaningful way for us. So you'll see there's my data coming up on the screen, and so I've got my customer number, name. That's all the fields that I specifically asked for, but I've got a bunch of customer number ones. I've got every single order of customer number one, and I don't have any totals. Right, so I'll have to go in, I'll have to go and add another column over here maybe somewhere, and then create a sum of that total. So that's all fine and dandy, but you say to me, Brent, we've already got this procedure written in our application where at the click of a button we can give you that information, but that's in OpenEdge. It's not in a tool that I could use. So let's have a look at the solution we've got for that, and that's what Jeff was talking about when he was mentioning the open access for OpenEdge App Server. So the OpenEdge for OpenEdge App Server was released with progress for the DataDirect OpenAccess version 7.2. So it's quite important to remember that it's version 7.2. This is not a new product. It's a product that has over 100 customers worldwide that are already using it. Jeff mentioned Netsuite and Coins, just to mention two of them. But there's a vast number of customers worldwide that's already using this technology. It is also based on DataDirect experience and expertise in the field of data connectivity. That's a field that they are a world leader in, so it's based on top of that technology. So what we do is we provide you with a jar file that you run and extract on your machine as an addition to the SDK. And that jar file contains a number of things. The first thing and the most important bit that it includes is the IP, the interface provider. This interface provider is pre-built, and that is pre-built so that you do not have to write any code. So when you extract that, as I said, it is pre-built, and we do not provide you with a source code for that, but it also provides you with a number of other things. The first thing that it will do is, when you install the SDK, it provides you with a Microsoft Management Console with some configuration tools, available in there. So you can see you can go and set up, the server settings general, and this will be paths and parameters like, the database name and the like. But the first thing we provide you with is a self-scripting bat file. And this bat file then, once you provide the specific credentials, it runs and it automatically configures this configuration tool for you so that you do not have to go in and have to edit and modify any of this data as you would see on the screen there. So that's automatically modified for you. But then we do a little bit more. We give you some sample files. And there are two types of sample files that we provide you with. Firstly, we provide you with OpenEdge 10 and OpenEdge 11 sample files. And then in the sample files, we provide you with the business entities, an example of the business entities that contain those full create, read, update, and delete methods that Jeff mentioned earlier on. So we got in the sample was what the code will look like in that scenario. And then we also provide you with the schema files. The schema files are quite important. The schema files is what we use to pass to the interface provider, and it's the interface provider that then interacts with the SDK to give you access to the application data that through the application server. So with that, we also provide you with a full document, and it goes through all the information required. So installing our OpenAccess, and that includes the self-scripting batch file that I was talking about, and all the information that you require for that. And then how do you enable your OpenEdge application for the data access, and then configuring OpenEdge itself, and then of course we provide you with some troubleshooting information in that. So let's have a look at what this does for us. So again, it also provides you with the client side, the ODBC data administrator, and again in the also enough time to cut down on time, I have already set this up. So very similar. I had to enter the name, a description of it. Again, the host name, which in this case is localhost, and then the service port, and then I can choose the data source service type, which is the OpenAccess, as you can see. Now I'm going to do a test connect. So in the first time when I did a test connect, you remember me entering a whole bunch of characters in the key, and I can enter some password there, and it will fail. Now this is proving, the first point that we mentioned regarding, the support. I'm going to enter my login credentials, and do a test connect. And now the connection was successful because my login credentials was successful, and therefore proving the point that this is a secure connection. So once we've configured that, we can now go and again open up our Microsoft Excel. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close that. So what I'll do now is I'll just open up Microsoft Excel again, and I'm going to connect to that OpenAccess data source, and in doing so, I'm presented with to enter my login credentials. I'll enter the correct login credentials this time. Notice I do need to specify a password, and straight away when I do that, I see that I do get a table selection, but this time I get a much reduced list of tables, right? And this is because I have specifically created the procedures that I want to expose through my business intelligence tool to use for whatever choice I want. So I've done customer orders. It's just a procedure that I've written. Select all the tables. I can see I've got a customer number, a name, country, postcode, sales rep, and there's the total order. So I click on next, and I'm just going to step through this. And there I get the data that now doesn't have 100 customer number 1 details, but it's giving me just the information that I'm specifically looking for, which is what was asked for in the very beginning. So that's quite important to us. So let's have a look at how I did that. So I go to the Progress Developer Studio for OpenEdge, and you'll see that this is the code that I have written. There's not a lot of code there. The first thing that I needed to do was I needed to define a temporary table, as you can see there, with the fields that I wanted to use. So the customer number, name, country, postcode, and then the all-important total of all the orders. The next thing I needed to do was to join those tables to present a view that would be consistent with what the business analyst was expecting and not a developer was expecting. So I did that by joining some tables together. As you can see there, that's a progress statement and progress ABL. So at this point, the only technology that I'm needing to write code in is progress ABL. So very simple. Even if you're not a developer, you can see what it is doing in that code over there. And so this could be quite simply code that you already have in your application. So what I need to do is I need to prepare this code so that I can create that schema file that I can pass on to the interface provider. So to do that, I right-click in the code, I go to Progress OpenEdge, and I choose Define Service Interface. I choose the program that I specifically wanted, so that's customer orders. I'm telling it that I want him to read records. So all I'm doing is, of all those 4 methods, the create, read, update, and delete, I'm clearly only using the read method. I select the temporary table that I'm wanting this to work with, and I click Finish. It's going to overwrite some details, but that's fine. So what it's done is it's added 2 lines of annotations at the top of my procedure, and it's added 2 lines of annotations further below in my procedure. So with those annotations now added, I can save that procedure. And then what I need to do is I now need to generate the schema file. And that schema file is in JSON format. And so Progress provides us with the ability to generate that JSON file automatically as well. So I come down to my defined services, and double-clicking on that, it tells me that's the name of the service. I again need to specify I just need to save that, sorry. So that's the service, and then I need to go to customerorders.p, as you can see, and I can click on Finish. And with that, it would have generated the JSON file for me, and that's what the JSON file looks like. So with that JSON file created and saved, this is now exposed to the interface provider, and the interface provider gives me access with my favorite business analyst tool, intelligence tool, shall I say, to do that. I'm going to do something similar now with something like Tableau, which is probably more akin to business intelligence than Excel is. So again, choose my OpenEdge Access ODBC connection. I will do connect, enter my login credentials, and I choose the table that I'm wanting to work with, and I'm going to work with just customer orders at this point. So select, say OK, yes, and I'm going to connect live to the database. And with that, it would have taken the field that I provided through that temporary table as before. You'll see that there's customer number and total order. And Tableau makes a best guess from its perspective as to where these fields should be, if they should be in a measure or a dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my total orders and I'm going to stick that up onto my columns. And I'm going to take my sales rep and drag that onto the rows. And I'm going to take sales rep again and drag that onto color. And with that, I now get information on the orders that all my sales rep represent and the totals that they represent. I can, again, this is more using the features of the intelligence tool that I'm using. And you can see there that I can select none of them and then just choose one. and I will get the details of just that, specific sales rep. So, with this, I think that it really demonstrates that the information that I now work with is from the code that I've written and the code that I have exposed, to the interface provider. I want to show you some more from a code. I'm a coding man, so I'll show you a bit more there. And that was a very simple customer orders, but part of the jar file that you would have extracted, what that jar file also does for you is it gives you a number of samples, as I said. So I'm going to look at the department sample, and you can see that this sample uses a number of extra methods in there. So you'll see that we've got the create records, delete records, read records, and the update records. And the code for all of this is provided for you, and to implement that code, setting all of that is done through the bat file that I mentioned earlier on. So with that, I think I've clearly demonstrated the fact that there's no code required other than the ABL code that you already have, and secondly, the security of your application that we already take advantage of, and that allows you to add all the functionality that provides with the database to enhance all of that. So things that Jeff mentioned earlier on, multi-tenancy and the like, all take advantage of this. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it back to Jeff, who will walk you through the rest of the presentation, and I'll still be available for some questions and answers later on.
Thanks, Brent. That was an excellent job with the demo. Really appreciate that. Okay, so let me progress just a couple more slides here, and we'll get into some questions. So we've seen how OpenAccess can be used to quickly and easily unlock OpenEdge application data, thanks to Brent. OpenAccess, just a few takeaway messages here. OpenAccess accelerates business analysis by presenting OpenEdge data in a way that's more familiar to the application user, to the business user, and it can be implemented rather quickly, so you can see some quick ROI. It delivers more value to the end users, expanding the relevance of OpenEdge applications within their own businesses and ecosystems. And like I said, quick and easy implementation, and really the fastest way to get your application compatible with data-centric tools, BI tools, analytics tools, ETL processes, and a lot more. And what's really new with OpenAccess, we're delivering a full-function ABL interface provider for OpenEdge applications. And that's what Brent just demoed. So if we look at where we're at now, let me close with this slide and encourage you to consider this for some powerful custom-built data connectivity. There is a free trial and several new white papers available on our website, and we invite you to contact your Progress account executive to find out a bit more. So really appreciate you all listening and seeing the demo. And right now we're going to open it up for some questions, and I'm going to bring in the product manager for OpenAccess, Brad Wright, and Brent will stay on as well to help answer. And I'm going to look in the chat window, and I see a few questions in here. I'm going to start with the first question. So Brent and Brad, so when we looked at OpenAccess earlier, it required us to do some work in Java. So whatever happened to that requirement?
Hey, Jeff, this is Brad. I'll take that question. And thanks, everybody, for joining. And that was a great webinar content and an awesome demo, Brent. So both Jeff and Brent touched on this, but this is a good question, and it's important to be really clear about. OpenAccess, as Brent indicated, has been a product for many, many years, has a very large customer base, including NetSuite, including Coins, and including a number of other OpenEdge partners. And OpenAccess, in its sort of bare form for those customers and partners, makes sense to them. But one of the things that is required to use OpenAccess and to build out a complete solution using that, I'll call it the basic or the base version of OpenAccess is a small amount of custom programming using Java or C++ to integrate OpenAccess, to teach OpenAccess how to talk to your particular data. And in the basic form of OpenAccess, that's just a core requirement. And again, that makes sense for all of OpenAccess's current customers and the OpenEdge partners that have already adopted OpenAccess. But what we heard from many of you is that requirement to do that small amount of coding in Java or C++ did not make sense for you. And so what we've done with this new release of this add-on, I'll call it an add-on. So think of this as two things. There's core OpenAccess, the base version of OpenAccess, and then there's this add-on which is called the OpenAccess for OpenEdge Application Server that you've heard us refer to a couple times. That is the piece that we are now providing that eliminates that need for you, an OpenEdge partner or OpenEdge end user, to have to do that Java or C++ coding. We've gone ahead and done that work for you so that OpenAccess now knows, when you add this add-on, now knows how to talk directly to an OpenEdge application server, and now knows how to talk to ABL.Ps like Brent showed you. So that requirement is gone. And that's really the key, one of the key takeaways that I hope you leave from this webinar. For those of you that have previously looked at OpenAccess and sort of it wasn't appropriate and wasn't right for you because of that requirement, and certainly for those of you that are new to OpenAccess, is OpenAccess with this new add-on, the OpenAccess for OpenEdge Application Server add-on, knows how to talk directly to your OpenEdge application server. So when you use OpenAccess now, you code and work directly in the environment and the language that you're familiar with, and that's ABL. So the great question. Hopefully that really crystallizes and clarifies what's new and different here.
Thanks, Brad. Good answer. Good answer. So the next question I have here in the chat is, how does OpenAccess know which ABL procedures to expose?
So you will recall that I was working with a customer orders procedure, and when I went and created that JSON file, it's that JSON file that is exposed to the IP, and that's how the OpenAccess knows which code to expose. So that JSON file is the schema that is required and is presented to the IP to generate the required connection.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Next question. Does this new integration with OpenEdge require an app server?
I'll take that one again. So, yes, it definitely does require the app server, because the OpenAccess connectivity is through the application server, and that gives us a number of advantages. The first thing being the security of the application. So you can change and even enhance the security of the application. We didn't show that today, but that is still a capability that you can add to what we showed today. So the application server is definitely required.
Okay, thanks, Brent. The next question in the chat is, do you have any performance benchmark data?
Oh, I'll take that. So the answer is that we do not provide standardized performance benchmark data for OpenAccess, and the reason is actually pretty simple. The reason is because every deployment of OpenAccess is different. It's different from the perspective of the back-end data source is different. The whole point of OpenAccess is to rapidly enable standards-based connectivity to proprietary backends and proprietary data sources. So every one of those customers' data sources is different, and every one of those customers' implementation of their interface provider. You've heard us, use this term multiple times, interface provider. That's that piece of code that teaches Open Access how to talk to a back-end data source, and that's that piece of code that Open Access customers would typically have to implement and do have to implement, that I was referring to earlier, that you as OpenEdge customers no longer have to implement because we've provided that for you now as this add-on. So there is not standard set of performance benchmarks for Open Access because of this reason. So, performance, of course, is always going to be a question, and what we encourage you each to do is do a proof of concept with Open Access and with this new Open Access for OpenEdge Application Server, and you will work directly with your account team and very talented individuals and experienced individuals like Brent and come up with that, what are the performance characteristics for my particular use case and my particular ABL and my particular data as it exists in our OpenEdge database.
Good. Thanks, Brad. A couple more questions that are in the chat. The next one is there an alternative for the Microsoft MMC? Is there a browser interface?
I'll take that, Brad. Yeah, as far as I know, there is no browser interface, so it is the MMC that you have to use. However, as I mentioned before, there is a scripted bat file that can be used to update the MMC accordingly. So we could, we provide a standard one, but that one can certainly be modified. Although I haven't done so, I'm sure one or two of my colleagues would possibly have done so, and that can be achieved. That to bypass the requirement for the MMC. As it stands, when I did this demonstration, I did not use the MMC. In fact, I did use the MMC during the process, and that was just to start. The required components, and that was all I needed. I didn't do any of the configuration inside the MMC at all.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Next question is about the CRUD, the Create, Read, Update, Delete support. Does it support the same standards as the mobile JSDO interface?
Yes, it does. In fact, it's built on exactly the same, mobile technology that we use with the OpenEdge Mobile that was released with OpenEdge 11.1.
Okay, and is the REST server used between Open Access and the app server?
Not in this solution, it isn't. But we do have, as part of the 7.2 release, one of the other components that we released was the Open Access REST IP generator. And works on a very similar principle, except that it's obviously REST related. And last week, one of my colleagues did a very similar presentation and a really good demonstration of how to use that REST IP generator. That is available on the Progress website as well as on the Progress YouTube channel for that. But if you wanted any more questions in that regard, then please feel free to contact me via the Progress.
Okay, good. How much more time do we have for questions?
We actually have about 12 more minutes.
So I'll go through.
I think we can probably hit a lot that are in the queue. We've received a lot of questions. This has really been terrific. Thanks, everybody.
The next one I see in here is who translates the SQL query syntax to ABL syntax? If the ABL code has to do this, are there parsers available to help with that process?
Well, that definitely sounds like a Brent question to me.
Okay, right. Yeah, so we do all of that. I think Jeff mentioned, or may have been Brad that mentioned that part of the Open Access SDK, we provide the SQL engine included in that product. So when you use the ABL code that I've written, and that gets passed through via JSON to the interface provider, that's where the SQL query optimization happens. So there's no need for you to access any of those parsers or any of that material. So all you're needing to do is provide the ABL that you currently do to get access to your application.
Okay, good. Next question is, it says, is it suitable to communicate with progress data sets? You might mean, is it required or possible to communicate with progress data sets? Maybe, Brent, can you take that one?
Yeah, sure, Jeff, yes. So when I was, the solution or the example code that I used was using a temporary table. As part of the sample code that we provide 2 per table in the Sports 2000 database. One is a temporary table solution, and the other one is a pro data set solution. So you can see the code for both of them and expand that to include that in your solution for your specific application and database.
And just to clarify, Brent, when you say code, you really mean, and samples, you're meaning ABL samples.
That's right, yeah, ABL.
Right.
That's correct.
Good, good. Just 3 more quick questions here. The next one is, can Brent show us or tell us where he points the open access to the app server and the JSON file?
Is that something you can quickly do? Because, Brent, we can give you the ball back.
It's actually... what I'd prefer to do actually is if I can engage with whoever's asked that question.
Okay.
A little bit further, because again that is done in through setup, because it's all related to the paths that we set up through the batch file. So it's a case of going through the batch file and talking about all of that.
Next question: is there an Eclipse compatible driver available?
That may be something that we should follow up on. I'm not sure I understand what's being asked there. Brent, is that?
Yeah, I also don't fully understand what's being asked there, because the Developer Studio is running in Eclipse, but I don't really understand that question. But the OpenEdge Developer Studio, the reason we use that is twofold. That comes with OpenEdge 11.3, and it provides us with all the capabilities to create the annotations that we require, that is used to generate the JSDO automatically. So that is why we use Developer Studio. However, that JSDO can be created manually. So for argument's sake, with Developer Studio was only released with OpenEdge 11, but we did say that the solution also works with OpenEdge 10. So with OpenEdge 10, you do not have that capability. So in the document that I mentioned before I got started, in that document tutorial, we discuss how to generate those files manually. So the Developer Studio is only available from OpenEdge 11 onwards. From a database perspective, with OpenEdge, with the Developer Studio and all the other guises it had through version 9, 10, and 11 today, we always included with that the DB Navigator. And with the DB Navigator, you can then set up SQL through SQL access to your database through the DB Navigator, and you can use that in your Developer Studio project. I'm not sure that I've answered the question that was asked, though, but I'm a little bit unclear as to what was specifically asked.
But a good explanation, nevertheless. Does the ABL accept input parameters to restrict the returning data set?
The answer to that, the simple answer is yes. So you can restrict that as much as you will restrict any of your code. So you can restrict that, so for argument's sake, when I did my example, I had the data for all the countries, and I had it for all the sales reps. You can restrict that with input parameters in your code, so that it's only for a certain country or a certain representative as well.
We will be having a session at Exchange specifically on this topic and this new offering, the open access for OpenEdge Application Server. So if you haven't registered for Exchange, please consider doing so.
Thanks, Brad. That's good. And the final question is, what client workstation and licensing for open access is required for each workstation?
Well, I was hoping that we would get a question related to pricing and licensing. And the answer is this. The answer is that is a conversation to have with your partner rep. Partner reps have pricing and licensing guidance from, obviously, us, from product management. And because the nature of the contracts and the agreements that you all have are so varied and so different, the reps are enabled to have that right conversation with you, to structure the right sort of, to structure the pricing and licensing deal for this new capability in a way that makes the most sense for your particular contracting vehicle. So I apologize that I can't give you a specific answer because, again, each of you has such different contracting vehicles and structure with us. So the rep, your partner rep, knows about this, has the guidelines from us, and they're the person to best have that conversation with. So I really, really encourage you, just as this call to action on this slide here says, is to reach out to your rep. They will be happy to have that conversation with you and to start a POC. We really encourage you to sort of kick the tires on this.
Thanks, Brad. And thanks to everyone for listening. And now I'll turn it back to Marla.
Well, thanks again, everyone. This has been a fabulous webinar. Thanks again for joining, and we look forward to having you join us for our next webinar. Bye-bye.